The grand chandelier glimmered like a cluster of captured stars, casting golden light across the ballroom. Laughter and music intertwined, creating an atmosphere of perfection. Clara stood at the entrance of the hall, her white gown sweeping the polished floor, a delicate veil framing her radiant face. Today was meant to be the happiest day of her life, her wedding to Ethan, a man she loved with her whole heart. Yet, as she scanned the crowd, a subtle unease settled in her chest. It wasn't the usual nerves of a bride preparing to exchange vows. Something in Ethan's expression nagged at her, a flicker of distraction, the ghost of a hesitation he couldn't quite hide. He smiled when he saw her, took her hand and whispered, "You look perfect." But the warmth in his eyes didn't reach the corners. The guests cheered as the newlyweds stepped onto the polished dance floor. The band launched into a lively waltz, and Clara allowed herself to be swept away, her fears temporarily masked by the swirl of music and color. Yet, even amidst the joy, small signs gnawed at her. A man in a dark suit lingering near the edge of the hall, watching Ethan with sharp, calculating eyes. A flicker of tension in Ethan's posture whenever Mark, his best man, approached. The speeches began. Clara's father rose first, raising his glass with a tremor in his hand that betrayed emotion deeper than pride. "To my daughter and her new husband," he said, voice thick, "may your life together be as beautiful as this day." Applause erupted, clinking glasses echoing in the room. Then Mark took the floor. He raised his glass and smiled warmly, but there was an edge to his tone that made Clara's stomach tighten. "Ethan has been my brother through thick and thin," he said, "but even brothers can surprise you. Here's to surprises and to love." A subtle murmur ran through the crowd, but no one dared question the meaning behind his words. Clara tried to dismiss it. She wanted to trust everyone, especially Ethan. As the evening continued, the room shifted seamlessly between laughter and whispered conversations. The photographer captured moments of joy, Clara twirling in Ethan's arms, Lydia leaning into her sister with a teasing smile, the champagne fountains sparkling as if caught in eternal motion. But between the flashes of light, the camera captured more. A flicker of shadow in the corner, a guest who didn't belong, a hand brushing a piece of paper across the floor. Clara noticed none of it, but the audience felt it. Something was out of place. Dinner passed, then the cake. Clara cut the first slice, the knife glinting under the chandelier. Just as she lifted it, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. Gasps echoed. When the light returned, a chair sat empty near the back table. The guest who had been sitting there earlier, an acquaintance of Ethan's, was gone. Murmurs spread through the room, but no one seemed overly concerned. Clara smiled weakly, trying to mask the prickling unease. Later, Ethan pulled her close for their first dance. He whispered promises of forever, and Clara wanted to believe him. But as they spun across the floor, she noticed a folded slip of paper sticking out from the folds of her bouquet. Curious, she tugged at it gently when no one was looking. The paper was small and torn, a few words scrawled in hurried, shaky handwriting. "Not safe. Trust no one." Her heart lurched. She glanced at Ethan, who was talking and laughing with Mark across the floor, oblivious, or pretending to be. She tried to shake off the fear, telling herself it was probably a prank, yet the seed of doubt had been planted. She found herself glancing at the guests more closely, noticing details she hadn't before. The man by the wall now moving closer to the exit, the way Mark's eyes darted ever so slightly towards Ethan, and the sudden stillness of Lydia, who seemed to notice the same oddities. The band began to play a slower song, signaling the final dances of the evening. Guests swayed, couples hugged, and photographers clicked away. Clara tried to lose herself in the moment, but a cold shiver ran down her spine as she caught sight of Ethan's phone glowing on the table. His thumb hovered over it, pausing in the act of sending a message. She pretended not to notice, but a whisper of suspicion took root in her mind. Finally, the night drew to a close. Guests waved, cameras flashed, and congratulations poured in. Clara and Ethan stepped out into the crisp night air, leaving the grandeur of the ballroom behind. The limousine awaited, gleaming under the dim streetlights, a symbol of the life they were about to begin together. Yet as the car pulled away, a shadow lingered in the lot, hidden behind a row of parked vehicles. The figure's eyes followed every movement, tracking their departure. Unseen and unchallenged, it melted into the darkness, a quiet promise that this night, so full of joy and love, would not end peacefully. Clara rested her head against Ethan's shoulder, smiling, her fears momentarily buried. "I can't believe we're finally married," she murmured. Ethan kissed her forehead, murmuring in return, "Forever starts tonight." But the audience already knew forever might not be what she imagined. Shadows had begun to stir, secrets lay beneath the surface, and the first threads of the trail had been pulled. By the time the couple reached their honeymoon suite, the stage was set, not for romance, but for terror. And somewhere, watching from the darkness, the first move had already been made. The limousine hummed softly as it carried Clara and Ethan away from the wedding hall, the city lights fading behind them. The night air was crisp and cool, carrying a sense of freedom that Clara had imagined countless times in her wedding dreams. Her fingers intertwined with Ethan's, feeling the familiar warmth of his hand, yet a lingering chill crawled up her spine. The note she had found earlier, the one that warned, "Not safe, trust no one," pressed against her mind like a shadow she couldn't shake. Ethan, as always, seemed oblivious. He kept glancing down at his phone, typing and deleting messages in a tense rhythm. "Everything's fine," he said finally, noticing her stare. "Just some late-night work emails. Don't worry." Clara wanted to believe him, but a flicker of unease lingered. They arrived at the hotel, an isolated modern structure perched on a cliff overlooking the dark, restless sea. The building gleamed under soft exterior lights, giving it a serene appearance, but the isolation only added to the tension. As the valet handed them their luggage, Clara's heart rate quickened with an instinct she couldn't explain. Inside the suite, Ethan led her to the center of the room. The space was expansive and luxurious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering an uninterrupted view of the moonlit waves. A bottle of champagne sat on ice, a bouquet of fresh flowers on the table. Everything screamed perfection. Yet, as they stepped further in, Clara noticed a faint metallic scent in the air, almost imperceptible, and a slight creak of the floorboards near the door. She dismissed it as the building settling. Ethan poured champagne and tried to lighten the mood. "Relax, Clara. This is our night. No distractions." Clara nodded, forcing a smile, but the growing sense of unease refused to fade. She wandered toward the corner of the room, her gaze catching on something that made her pause. There, partially hidden behind the curtains, was a small, folded envelope. Curious, she picked it up. Her pulse quickened. The envelope had no stamp, no name, just a single word written in shaky handwriting: "Run." Clara froze, glancing toward Ethan, who was opening the champagne. "Ethan, look at this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "What is it?" He turned, eyes narrowing. I don't know. It says run." Ethan laughed, though the sound didn't reach his eyes. "Probably some marketing stunt from the hotel. Don't let it spoil the night." Clara wanted to accept his explanation, but instinct screamed otherwise. Something wasn't right. The room fell into an uneasy quiet as they attempted to settle in. Ethan suggested a walk on the balcony, trying to create a romantic distraction. The wind whipped Clara's hair, carrying the salty tang of the ocean, yet the moonlight revealed a shadowy figure across the cliffside parking lot, motionless, watching. She squinted, but when she blinked, the figure was gone. Her unease escalated when she returned to the suite and found her phone missing. "Ethan, did you—" she began, but he shook his head. "I haven't touched it. Maybe it slipped somewhere?" Panic prickled at the edges of her mind. She scoured the room, lifting cushions and checking drawers, but the phone was gone. Then the balcony door clicked, softly, almost imperceptibly. She froze. Someone else was in the suite. "Who's there?" she called, voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. No answer came. Her heart pounded as she crept toward the source of the noise. A shadow moved across the floor, too large to be a curtain. Clara's stomach churned. Ethan appeared behind her, calm but tense. "Stay here," he said, voice low. "I'll check." Clara shook his head. "No, don't go alone. Something is wrong." Before Ethan could respond, a sudden crash erupted from the closet. Clara stumbled backward, and the door burst open. Inside, she found a shocking sight, a hidden compartment containing a collection of weapons, knives, a handgun, and even a small crossbow. Beside it, photographs of herself, taken without her knowledge, some with notes scribbled across them. Her breath caught in her throat. Ethan stepped closer, seeing what she had found. His expression flickered, not fear, but something darker. "Clara, you shouldn't have seen that," he said quietly, almost pleading. "Seen what? Ethan, what is all this?" Clara demanded, backing toward the bathroom, heart hammering. Before he could answer, a soft sound echoed from the hallway outside, a deliberate knock followed by a faint whisper of her name. Clara's hand shook. The presence she had sensed earlier was no longer a shadow. It was real. Someone was here. Ethan froze, eyes scanning the suite. "It's okay. I can handle this," he said, moving toward the door. Clara gripped his arm. "No, we need to call the police. We need—" Another crash interrupted her words. The bedroom window rattled violently, and a cold wind burst into the room. Her bouquet toppled to the floor, scattering petals like blood across the polished wood. The lights flickered, plunging the room into near darkness. In that moment, Clara realized the danger wasn't coming from a stranger outside. It was inside the room with them. Her mind raced. Every instinct screamed escape, yet every exit seemed fraught with peril. The suite, meant to be a sanctuary, had become a cage. She tried to control her breathing, to focus, but a sense of betrayal gnawed at her. Ethan, the man she trusted above all else, had secrets he hadn't shared, and now, with a hidden intruder, she had no idea who was truly safe. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed. A distorted voice whispered a single chilling word: "Clara." She recoiled. Ethan's face went pale. He whispered something under his breath, almost inaudibly. "It's him. He's here." The lights flickered once more, and in that brief flash, Clara caught sight of a masked figure at the edge of the room, silent, looming, patient. Panic surged, adrenaline igniting every nerve. She grabbed Ethan's hand, pulling him toward the bathroom, but as they moved, the intruder took a step forward, slow, deliberate. Clara's mind raced, heart hammering in her ears. Every plan she tried to form dissolved into fear in an instant. The night had shifted from romance to nightmare in an instant, and she knew with terrifying clarity that the events set in motion at the wedding hall were only the beginning. Somewhere in the shadows, the first move had been made, and the game, one that Clara had never agreed to play, was just beginning. Clara's pulse pounded in her ears as she backed towards the bathroom, dragging Ethan with her. The room, once a sanctuary of romance, had become a battlefield. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting in the dim, flickering light. Every instinct screamed danger, yet the masked figure at the edge of the room remained unnervingly still, watching, waiting. Ethan's face was pale, jaw tight. He whispered, almost to himself, "I didn't want this. I didn't know he'd come so soon." Clara froze. "What? Ethan? Who?" Before he could answer, the masked figure lunged. Clara screamed, stumbling backward, and the force of the attack sent her tumbling into the bathroom. The intruder's gloved hand swung at Ethan, who barely managed to deflect it. A crash of glass shattered the room as the window exploded outward, letting in a rush of cold, salt-scented air. Chaos erupted. Ethan grabbed a chair, swinging it defensively, but the masked figure was fast, almost unnaturally so. Clara scanned the room frantically. The hidden weapons from the closet now seemed like their only chance. She grabbed the handgun, her hands trembling, and aimed toward the intruder. "Clara, no!" Ethan shouted, stepping between her and the figure. "Ethan, do something!" she yelled, panic overpowering reason. The masked figure hesitated, eyes visible through the mask, locking onto Ethan. For the first time, Clara noticed the recognition in their stance. They weren't just attacking randomly, they were seeking revenge. "You," Ethan breathed, a mix of fear and resignation. "You shouldn't have come here." The intruder lunged again, and Ethan tackled them, sending both crashing into the dresser. Clara fired a shot. The masked figure yelped, spinning away, but not before grabbing a shard of broken glass and slashing toward Ethan. He screamed, stumbling backward, clutching his arm. Blood blossomed across his sleeve. Clara's stomach turned. This wasn't just an intruder, it was someone from Ethan's past. Her mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't wanted to see. The cryptic messages, the strange behavior, the weapons in the closet, it all made sense now. Ethan had secrets, dark ones, dangerous ones. You knew he would come tonight?" Clara asked, voice shaking. Ethan didn't answer. His focus was entirely on the attacker, moving with calculated precision, trying to protect her despite the chaos. The fight intensified. Furniture toppled, glass shattered under the intruder's forceful swings. Clara fired another shot, missing narrowly as the figure ducked behind a sofa. She realized then that the gun was more a tool of intimidation than a weapon. She had no real chance of stopping him alone. In the chaos, the intruder knocked over a lamp, plunging the room into near darkness. Clara's heart raced as she saw Ethan grapple with the masked figure, both silhouetted against the moonlight streaming through the broken window. She noticed a small movement near the balcony door. Another shadow, another player. Someone else was in the suite, watching. Clara's breath caught. She had to act. Ignoring fear, she grabbed a heavy vase and hurled it toward the intruder. The vase struck, staggering him long enough for Ethan to regain balance. He pinned the attacker against the wall, gripping the mask with one hand, the other clenching his knife from the closet. "You were done," Ethan growled. "I warned you not to come after me." The masked figure laughed, low and chilling. "You thought you could escape your past, Ethan? Thought I'd forget? Tonight ends what you started years ago." Clara's mind reeled. She finally understood. Ethan's criminal past had caught up with him. This wasn't random violence, it was revenge. The masked figure was a former accomplice, wronged by Ethan, seeking payback for betrayal, perhaps even murder. A sudden sharp noise startled everyone. Clara glanced toward the door and froze. Ethan's best man, Mark, was standing there, holding a gun. His expression was cold, calculated. "You think you can hide the truth, Ethan?" Mark said low. "It's over." Ethan's eyes widened, and Clara realized the horrifying truth. Betrayal had been layered, double and triple folded. Mark had known, had planned, had perhaps even helped orchestrate this night. Clara felt the room tilt, her stomach dropping. She didn't know whom to trust anymore. The masked figure took advantage of the distraction, wrenching free from Ethan's grip. He lunged at Mark, and chaos erupted anew. Shots rang out, breaking the tense silence, and Clara dove behind the overturned sofa, clutching her handgun tightly. Her knuckles whitened as she tried to calm her racing heart. Time seemed suspended. Blood, shattered glass, and overturned furniture painted the room in vivid strokes of violence. Clara's breaths were shallow, and adrenaline made her limbs feel like iron. Suddenly, in a brief moment of clarity, Ethan shoved the masked figure toward the balcony. The wind whipped violently, threatening to send the intruder over the edge, but he clung to the railing, snarling, and lunged back at Ethan with murderous intent. In that split second, Clara fired. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the suite, deafening. The masked figure went still, staggering backward and collapsing onto the balcony floor. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping, blood seeping through his torn sleeve. Clara ran to him, shaking, her tears mixing with the grime and blood that now coated everything. "Ethan, tell me you're okay," she cried. "Ethan, I'm fine," he rasped, although his pallor and the blood told a different story. His hands shook as he reached for hers. "Clara, I never wanted this. It's my fault, all of it. My past, my lies." Clara's chest tightened. The man she had married, the one she thought she knew, was revealed in fragments she wasn't prepared to see. Love and horror collided inside her, leaving her stunned and trembling. Outside the suite, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, signaling the arrival of authorities. The battle was over, for now, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would linger. Clara knew this night would forever be burned into her memory, a wedding night turned nightmare, a night of blood, betrayal, and revelation. And though the masked figure lay defeated and Mark had fled into the chaos outside, Clara understood one chilling truth. The danger was not entirely gone. Secrets had a way of surviving, of hiding, of returning. The room, once pristine and romantic, now bore the marks of violence and terror. Clara, kneeling beside Ethan, realized that their story, once meant to begin with love and joy, had been rewritten in shadows, betrayal, and blood. And somewhere, in the darkness beyond the suite, unseen eyes still watched, waiting for the next move. The first rays of dawn crept over the cliffside hotel, illuminating the chaos inside the suite. Broken glass glimmered on the floor, blood smeared across furniture and walls, and overturned chairs told the story of a battle no one would ever forget. The sirens from earlier had grown louder, and the distant wail of police radios signaled the arrival of help. Clara sat on the floor, her back pressed against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. Ethan leaned beside her, his face pale, a makeshift bandage wrapped around his arm where the masked intruder had slashed him. He looked up at her, eyes weary, guilt etched into every line of his face. I should have told you everything," he murmured, voice hoarse. "I thought I could bury it all, start a normal life with you, but it caught up with me. I didn't want you hurt." Clara's hand shook as she gripped his. "I trusted you, Ethan. All of this, your secrets, the lies, it almost killed us." Her voice was trembling, more with rage than fear. Before he could respond, a voice called from the doorway. Detective Ramirez, tall and imposing, stepped into the suite, scanning the room. "Everyone all right?" he asked, his eyes immediately taking in the blood and destruction. We're fine," Ethan replied weakly, though the redness on his sleeve told a different story. Clara jumped up. "It wasn't fine. Someone tried to kill us. There was a masked man, weapons, everything." Ramirez nodded, calm but thorough. "We'll need statements, and we need to know everything about him." He glanced at Ethan, "including your involvement." Ethan's shoulders slumped. "I'll tell you everything." The investigation unfolds. The next few hours were a blur. Clara sat on a stretcher in the ambulance bay, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea but unable to shake the images of the previous night. Police scoured the area, gathering evidence, photographing the suite, and interrogating staff. Detective Ramirez returned, his expression unreadable. "Ethan's accomplice, the masked figure, he's been identified. Michael Grant, long history with Ethan, fraud, theft, and a string of violent incidents. He held a grudge, and it finally came to a head." Clara's stomach sank. "And Ethan, what about him?" Ramirez sighed. "He's injured but alive. We'll need to question him fully, but preliminary evidence suggests he tried to protect you from Grant. Some of his past actions caught up with him, but last night he saved you." Clara stared at Ethan through the hospital window as he was wheeled past, bandaged and restrained. The man she loved was complicated, flawed, and now undeniably tainted by a past she hadn't known existed. Her heart ached. Love and betrayal collided in ways she had never imagined. The betrayal revealed. As the investigation deepened, shocking revelations came to light. Mark, Ethan's best man, had not been acting alone. Surveillance footage from the hotel showed him moving suspiciously in the hallways before the attack. Detective Ramirez shared the details with Clara privately. Mark was in league with Michael Grant. He resented Ethan, envy, past grudges, unresolved conflicts. He helped orchestrate the night, hoping it would end in disaster for Ethan. Lucky for you, the chaos prevented their plan from succeeding completely. Clara's stomach reeled. The man she had considered a friend, the one she had smiled with, danced with, trusted implicitly, had tried to orchestrate her death alongside a violent criminal. Nausea and disbelief churned in her stomach. Confrontation and closure. Days later, Clara visited Ethan in the hospital. He looked smaller, diminished by his injuries, but the weight of his past was even more visible. She sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. "You should hate me," Ethan said quietly, eyes avoiding hers. "I never wanted this life to touch you. I never imagined—" His voice broke, trailing off. "I don't know what I feel," Clara admitted, tears prickling. "You protected me, but all these lies, all this deceit, how do I reconcile that?" Ethan reached out, gently grasping her hand. "I can't change the past. I can only try to make amends. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe now." Clara's gaze drifted toward the window. Outside, the world was waking, but inside, their lives were forever changed. "I need time. I need to understand who you really are before I can even think about us." Lingering threats. Even as the hospital lights cast a soft glow, a sense of unease lingered. Detective Ramirez had assured Clara that Michael Grant was in custody, but some instincts couldn't be silenced. That same night, as Clara returned to her apartment, she noticed a shadow flit across the street outside her window. Her breath caught. She was safe for now, but the events of the wedding night had taught her one chilling lesson. Danger didn't always announce itself. Final twist. The wedding hall, once a place of celebration, stood empty and quiet in the early morning. Broken decorations lay strewn across the floor, remnants of a night meant for love but turned into horror. Clara returned to the hall to gather her belongings, memories of joy now overlaid with blood and betrayal. As she walked through the deserted space, she caught a movement in the reflection of a shattered mirror. A figure lingered at the far end of the hall, someone familiar yet unexpected. Her breath caught. She blinked, and the figure was gone. Clara understood with a shiver that the story wasn't over. The night ended, yes, but the shadows, the secrets, and the threats would linger forever.